And we are live for episode number 42 of the Bronx Bomber Battle podcast. I'm your host, Matt Loves Luigi. And tonight, we got the full crew. It's Alex,
Hello.
it's Andrew,
What's up, man?
and it's G.
Hey,
Hey, and this is our State of the Yankees podcast. It's our first one of the year. We're going to do three more of these, but this is the first one. We plan to do this at the quarter mark, and we're a bit past that. It's, 10, about 10 games past that, but doesn't matter. We're still going to review the season thus far. We're going to talk about all the injuries, give our favorite moments, our favorite storylines, bold take until the All-Star break. We're going to go through it all. Biggest disappointment. But, at the end of the day, this team's 34-18. This team's in first place. Who would have thought? After not the first couple of weeks of the season, we're not exactly good. If you remember, a lot of people were mad. This team looked terrible. They were having some lackluster performances, and here they are, 34-18. Unexpected guys coming through. That's just been the theme the whole season. Just winning series after series. They've literally lost one series in the past month and a half. This team's been playing unbelievable baseball. We're going to recap the season so far, but Andrew, just start us off, man. How happy are you with this team right now? Because it really is impossible to be mad at this team, except if you have a Twitter account and you have a New York Yankees emblem as your logo, as your Abby.
Man, if you had asked me this 3-4 weeks ago, probably would have gotten a lot more of a lukewarm answer. But, I mean, what can you say about just the resurgence and the never say die attitude and just the grinded out ability of this team to be where they are? I mean, 50 or so games in, we're, 2 games above the Rays, 6.5, I think, above Boston as of Monday morning, Memorial Day. I mean, you look at all the guys that are on the injured list, the amount of guys that didn't even break camp with the team who were hurt in spring training. And there's no way that you would have told me they'd be where they are back in February, and I would have believed you. I mean, it's simply stunning, and there's nothing bad that I can say about the way the first 53 games have played out, 54 games, whatever it is, than where they sit right now.
Yeah, coming into this season, I don't think we really had any we had high expectations, but it wasn't as high because, Sevy was down, Didi was down, Dellin was out, Hicks was out. Spring training was awful for the Yankees, health-wise. So we were all just kind of very depressed coming into the season, and then, Andújar and Stanton went down, so the beginning of the season was awful. But the way that all the replacements came in and just grinded through everything and got back to, they got back to 500. They started winning some series, and then they just went on a tear. And the team as a whole, nobody gives up. It's insane how they, today, even though they lost today, they were down 7-1. And after winning both games of the doubleheader yesterday, they could have just said, you know what, a 6-1 road trip is fine. Instead, they just battled back and ended up tying the game. It's this whole season, the team they haven't given up at all. They're so resilient, and it's a complete different team than last year, where you'd see a lot of games where, they'd be down, say 5-2 in the 6th inning, and they'd have one hit the rest of the game. They just kind of give up and give in. So it's been a really, really fun season so far.
yeah, I think it's been really interesting to watch, even going back to before the season started, how the narrative has changed. After the moves they made in the offseason, and we're all really excited, thinking they would, win 100 games again and be really a serious contender. And, then people started to get hurt. And going into spring training, we have to even temper our excitement. People continue to get hurt. The first few weeks of the season were really, really not fun to watch. And, they were losing games. They lost an opening series at home against Baltimore. And, then they started to really, they had some guys just coming out of nowhere, right? They plucked Cameron Maben out of AAA. Gio Urshela was playing games before too long, and they started to really adopt this like never say die attitude. And they started to win, and they got back, and now they're in first place, and they have some star power coming back before too long. So I think it could get even more fun as the season goes on.
Yeah, just really a guy like Cameron Maben, like that just really describes the season to a T. Like, yeah, they're just picking up Cameron Maben, and hey, he's done a damn fine job. But let's just get right into it, right? Let's just, I mean, Alex kind of started it off, but the amount of you just list all the injuries this team has had this season, and we're not even in June. I mean, Andujar, Stanton, Judge, Tulo, Cece, Paxton, Gary for a little bit, Clint, coming into the season, Sevy, Didi, Hicks, Gumby, it's obviously Jacoby Ellsbury. That guy's been hurt for 10 years. It's just incredible how this team has sustained this. Guys going, I mean, look, it really started the first weekend of the year. After that first weekend series, it was announced within hours of each other that Andujar and Stanton were both out, right? Like, we haven't seen Stanton since. We saw Andujar for a week, and he was clearly not anywhere close to 100%. And now he's out for the year. So, I mean, we've pretty much had, like, at this point, like, Giancarlo Stanton this year has played 3 games. Tulowitzki's played 5 games. Greg Bird, 10 games. Even Hicks, who's back now, has still only played 10 games. It's just Aaron Judge, I believe, only played. Aaron Judge only played 20 games, so he's been out for more than half the season. It really is incredible how this team has sustained so many of their star players, so many of their players that coming into the season they were relying on. Just they haven't been there. Really, a guy like Gary, we forget that Gary, he was out for a little bit, right? It was only a couple of weeks. It felt like nothing compared to all the injuries this team's had. But there's been so many injuries. Honestly, I don't think any of us ended up picking it, but if you wanted to say the biggest disappointment this year was the Yankees' strength and conditioning staff, you'd be damn right in saying that, because my God, we've talked about it before, but there's got to be something going on. It's a deeper issue with this team getting all these injuries, man. It's ridiculous. But let's just start it off. G, what's your favorite storyline of the season so far?
So far for the season, my favorite storyline has definitely been Gio Urshela coming out of AAA, really coming out of nowhere and just being a hero, right? Like, it seems like a countless amount of times, game-tying hits, go-ahead hits, run-scoring hits, and he's in stark contrast to Miguel Andújar, speedy recovery to him, but he plays great defense, and, he got eaten alive. He had a really tough game, losing the game against the Royals with the bad hop, but it's really shouldn't take anything away from just – again, he came out of nowhere, and he's been a huge lift and a hero to this team, and one of those, kind of emblematic of the scrappy underdog attitude that the team has really adopted.
Yeah, Andrew, favorite storyline of the year?
For me, I've been absolutely thrilled with the resurgence of Gary Sanchez. I mean, there's no point in getting into how much he struggled last year. Everyone knows everything he went through, multiple trips to the injured list. It was called the disabled list back then, with, the groin injuries. He had a big game 2 in the ALDS against Boston, really carried us to the only win we got in that series. But all in all, he still had just a tragic year in 2018. And coming into this year, there was talk about, maybe Gary kind of peaked in 2016, 2017, and Brian Cashman screwed up by not trading him for JT Realmuto. Gary Sanchez will never be the guy we want him to be or think he can be ever again. It's kind of just a flash in the pan. And Gary has put a resounding no on all of those questions that were put on him coming into the year. I mean, as of Sunday night, he's hitting .265, 15 home runs, which leads the team, is third in all of the American League, 31 home runs, OPS a little south of 1,000. I mean, the guy is the one impact bat in the middle of the lineup that every team needs. And as beat up as we are without Judge, without Stanton, still without Didi for another couple of weeks, I mean, Gary is that menace in the middle of the lineup that this team has needed. And I've absolutely loved every moment of it. You go back to the third series of the year in Baltimore. He hit that 3 home run game. Seems like he's absolutely tormented Baltimore, kind of like Gleyber Torres has. But Gary's come up with big moments, all throughout the year. He hit a couple of just absolute monster bombs in San Francisco, a road trip a couple weeks ago. He's playing, he's throwing a couple balls into center field on
A couple.
attempts, but he's thrown out a bunch of guys too.
Mm-hmm.
Made a couple nice plays at the plate on, catching a ball up the line and still making the tag to record the out. I mean, he's played very, very well, and there's nothing that I could want more from him, save for maybe a couple, of those balls that he threw away on pickoff attempts. But outside of that, his defense is good. His pitch framing is very good. The pass balls haven't really been an issue, and of course he's mashing at the plate. So I've absolutely loved everything I've seen from Gary Sanchez so far this year.
Yeah, great to have scary Gary back, mashing Gary back. Alex, storyline of the season so far.
So for me, my storyline of the year is Domingo Germán's emergence, because he was one last year where he was the stereotypical, he was the Michael Pineda of 2018. He had flashes of brilliance where you saw he had just had nasty stuff, but he could not control it, and he would just give up so many runs. Last year, in 21 games and 14 starts, he had a 5.57 ERA. And that was an 85 innings pitch. He still had over 100 strikeouts, but he gave up 15 home runs in 85 innings. He gave up 53 earned runs. It was an 81 hits. It was not pretty. And one of the things was that, like, when in the first inning, he would always give up a bunch of runs, and then after that, you kind of settle down. But this year, he seems like he's really put it all together and figured out how to fix his problems. And it is a little bit of bad timing with his start today against the Royals, where he gave 7 runs. But
yeah, what the hell are you doing, Alex? He had one bad start.
Yeah, I know.
Storyline of the year, he sucks.
But overall, he's been the Yankees' best pitcher. And one thing that I keep hearing is that he's basically been a replacement Severino, because this season so far, he's 9-1 with a 3.34.
9-2 now.
No, he didn't get a loss today.
Oh yeah, that's right. They tied it. That it was like a foregone conclusion that he was going to get the loss. But
Yeah,
those Yankees.
And like 3.43 ERA in 60 innings pitched, like you couldn't really have asked any more of that from Severino. So he's not only become a solid starting pitcher, he's become one of the best pitchers in the American League. So I think his overall emergence as just a really, really filthy pitcher has been one of the most interesting things for me.
Yeah, and Alex, you said his ERA was high last year, and that was with those signs of like those flashes of brilliance. He still had just terrible numbers, but but he
he'd have like a couple good innings, but then he'd have a few where he just blew up.
Yeah, and I think I remember saying that I trusted Gianni Lasagna more than Germán coming into the year. I'm giving myself a neck for that. I'm a dumbass. My favorite storyline of the year so far, I'm going to go with Luke Voit proving that he's for real. A lot of people didn't think, and that was a big storyline coming into the year. A lot of people didn't think he was going to keep up what he was doing last year. And man, he pretty much has, man. Obviously the average isn't as high as it was last year, but he's getting on base almost every game. He had that ridiculous on base streak that ended a few weeks ago. He's mashing balls. He just hit a ball 470 feet over the weekend. The dude, look, he's obviously not the best defensive first baseman, but man, the dude mashes, and he's just, I love his approach at the plate. Got the nice high on base percentage. He's just been, him proving that he's for real has just been such a key, because just think of it, man. He's like him and LeMahieu. LeMahieu missed that 1-2 game set against Arizona, But I mean, Voit has really been like the one guy that's kind of been there like all year out of like the core of the Yankees, like him and Glaber. It's just he's played in 50 games. He's almost played in like every game, and that goes a long way when most of your team ends up on the IL at some point in the season, right? The best ability is availability at that point. But yeah, man, because 13 homers for Voit, he's only a couple behind Gary. He's been awesome this year, man. And like I said on the last show or a couple shows ago, he's in the driver's seat to be the AL All Star at first base. He's having that good of a year. Let's move on to what do we have next? Favorite moment of the season. Alex, start us off. What's been your favorite moment of the season?
So there's been so many moments this season where that could qualify for this, but the one that really stood out to me was the game-tying 2-run home run that Gio Urshela had against the Mariners a couple weeks ago, where the Yankees this was a game where there was really nothing that happened in the first 2/3 of the game. I believe it was either 2-1 or 3-1 going into the 8th or 9th inning, and then the Yankees gave up a run or two, made it 4-1, and it was one of those games where you just saw it and you're like, okay, it's going to be a loss. They're dead in the water, but they ended up scoring another run, and then in the 9th inning, off of former Yankee great Anthony Swarzak, Gio tied the game by hitting a bomb into Monument Park, and it ended up leading to the Yankees winning the game. Which that was it. It was one of my favorite moments, just because I had absolutely no faith in the Yankees for winning that game, and then once Gio came up, this was he was doing pretty well, but it was in the point of the season where you basically could just guess that you don't know whether he's a fluke or not, with his hitting. But once he hit that home run, that was really the kick, like, oh my God, he might actually be good. So it's just that, and just the ability to come back from the dead and tie the game like that and end up win was my favorite moment.
Gee, favorite moment on the year.
So my favorite moment for the season so far is the Gary Sanchez 3-home run game early in the season in Baltimore. And, the Yankees, they opened the season against Baltimore at Yankee Stadium. They lost the series. It was very just disgusting, overall effort, and people started getting hurt right away. And it sucked, and so they went down to Baltimore a couple of days later, early April, and Gary Sanchez, April 7th, had a 3-home run game. And, it's been awesome. That moment, that game specifically, but really set the tone for his season, because, from that day on, and he was just hitting moonshots. Like, he had 3 bombs, and he's been hitting bombs all season long. And that moment for me, that game, really set the tone for a season where he's been, like Andrew said before, the slugger that they've needed, the absolute terror in the middle of the lineup that they've needed all season.
It's funny you mentioned the series in Baltimore that kind of really turned around their season. I'm actually not going in this direction with my favorite moment, but I believe it was the day before, right? That 3-home run game by Gary was the game where Clint had that big home run late in the game to I think they were down by a run and put them up by 1 or 2 runs. I feel like that kind of was like a big watershed moment. Kind of really turned around the season. But actually, for me, my favorite moment on the season was the Friday night walk-off win against Tampa Bay. I think up to this point in the season, that has been their biggest series. Coming into a 3-game set at home against the team at the time that was in first place in the division, with a chance to capture first place for the first time all year. Kendrys Morales had an absolute nuke in the second inning of that game, and the Yankees didn't really do anything the rest of the game. Chad Green came in late, gave up a couple runs, and it looked like, well, this is just, there was a rain delay. It looked like it was going to be one of those just lackluster, typical kind of fadeaway games that the Yankees pull once a week or once every 10 days or whatnot. But the rally in the ninth inning was something special. First pitch, Voit unloads on a 98-mile-per-hour fastball to pull him within one, and then just the rally culminating in the walk-off RBI single from Gio Urshela. I feel like that was one of the most monumental moments of the season so far.
Yeah, that was an awesome win. That was such an awesome win.
I feel like that win itself captured everything that this team was about. We've said stuff like never say die, gritty. You're up against Jose Alvarado, who has absolutely filthy stuff. And a team that is in first place, there's a stigma that the Yankees had that they weren't really beating a lot of good teams. They were kind of just beating up on the bad teams. And again, they kind of just, grabbed victory from the jaws of defeat there. And I loved that game.
Yeah, that's a great moment, honestly. I'm gonna go with a bit of a funnier moment. Actually happened, pretty recently this past week. My favorite moment is Gleyber Torres hitting his 10th home run on the season against the Orioles, his 12th overall, and Gary Thorne just absolutely dying inside. I'm just gonna play the call again because it's that great. I've played it before on the pod, but it deserves to be played again because, my God, this is a great moment.
Torres way back up and I don't even know. Goodbye home run. I mean, last two at bats, he's hit home runs numbers 11 and 12 on the season, and now
I mean, just the tone of defeat in his voice, and that actually, he's been doing this a long time, and I mean, he just sounded so defeated. And it really was one of those moments where you're watching that game, and when Gleyber hit that, you're just like, you kind of just, I remember I just started laughing, like I just started kind of like, get the fuck out of here, like there's no way he just hit another home run again, like the 10 home runs against Baltimore. We were talking about it. The record's 14 against the team. He could do that. He's gonna have to go on another power surge when the Yankees face Baltimore again in August. But man, that was Gleyber's domination of Baltimore overall, and Gary, to be fair, because I think he's only one home run behind Gleyber in terms of Baltimore. But yeah, that was my favorite moment of the season. Gleyber just actually just ruining the Baltimore's dreams. So they really don't have that many dreams. To be fair, they're pretty bad. But let's move on to a little bit of a somber note. Biggest disappointment. Who wants to start off with their biggest disappointment? Someone take the floor.
I'll start it off. My biggest disappointment for the season was basically the entire storyline of Miguel Andújar, because he had such a good year last year, finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting, should have been first, but let's not get started on that.
He was first. What the hell are you talking about, dude? I have no idea what you're talking about.
And then, third game of the season, he just destroys his shoulder. And, they think he's going to be out for the year. He opts not to have surgery, tries to work back, ends up getting back and just has no, anything at the plate.
Yeah, it was so tough to watch.
He was legitimately painful to watch. I want to say he went he was 3 for 40 or something insane like that, where you could tell like Luigi said earlier, you could tell he had absolutely nothing. Like, he had no strength at all. He had no approach or anything. He was just trying to prove to himself that he could still play. And he ended up doing the right thing by getting the surgery. Now he's out for the year, but he'll be back next year. And I think just that whole line of events is just really, really disappointing and just sad overall for a guy who had such a good year last year, that his sophomore year just goes this terribly.
I'll go next. Mine is along the same lines, but I guess a different tone. Alex, you kind of mentioned that Andujar's injury is disappointing, more so in that it's sad and that we all like the guy and we feel for him and he really gave it a shot and it just wasn't there. Mine's a little more frustration. I'm going to go with just the recurring injuries of Giancarlo Stanton. Started off as the bicep strain, which is since long healed. Then it became a shoulder strain. He was just recently shut down last week with a calf strain, which that seems fishy to me. I mean, you don't get hit by a pitch. I don't care how hard the pitch is thrown. You don't get hit by a pitch and need to be shut down for 7 to 10 days. It seems like the team is covering up something else. Like maybe he twisted his ankle and pulled the muscle, or fell down in the shower at his apartment in Tampa, or something weird like that. Like I can't imagine he took a pitch. Even they said it was his knee/calf, which leads me to believe it was higher up on the calf towards the ligaments in his knee. But even then, I mean, unless it's something serious and we're going to find that he needs surgery, I mean, God forbid that would be devastating news. It just seems weird that you just get hit by a pitch and now you can't play for a week. I mean, wasn't he dealing with a calf strain all year last year too, or was that a different muscle in his leg?
I know he was dealing with something
I
last
think
year,
it was.
but I don't think it was
I
a
think it was
calf
his
strain.
hamstring.
Yeah.
It wasn't his calf.
Hamstring? Okay,
Yeah.
hamstring. Yeah, you can work through that a little more, I guess. But it's just, it's really disappointing because, you go back to our preseason shows. I think both myself and Luigi said, like, Stanton could put up MVP type numbers. Like, he had a rough first year adjusting to New York. And when we say rough, take that with a grain of salt because he had 38 home runs and drove in 100 runs. But we kind of expected, like, this guy could hit like 280, 45 home runs, driving a $120. Like, this is it. We're ready for it. And he has played 3 games of 52 this year. It's just super depressing.
Yeah, not great. Not great. G, yeah, all you.
So I'm gonna go with the season that Brett Gardner's had to date, and I didn't have like tremendously high expectations for him, but there was definitely an opportunity for him there. We talked about Giancarlo Stanton, but the Yankees' outfield depth has been absolutely decimated by injuries this year. With Judge and Clint Frazier was even hurt for a while. Like everyone, they dipped in a AAA to get Cameron Maben. Like all these guys, like Brett Gardner hadn't played center field every day for several years at this point, and even had lost really his everyday spot and starting spot to Andrew McCutchen last year. Now people get hurt, and there's an opportunity for him really to step back in and play every day and be the center fielder and be the leadoff hitter. And it just didn't last very long. Up until maybe this past week when he got pretty hot and had a bunch of extra base hits, there was just not much. He hit 6 or 7 home runs to the season, to this point in the season. But, it didn't last very long before he got moved down. He, got, quickly overtaken by DJ LeMay, who has been really great at the top of the lineup. Like, I'm going to maybe try and spin it now more as like it's a, just an aging player who's kind of running out of gas. But it just sucks because there was a tremendous opportunity for him there, and he really didn't take advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely not Gardy's best year. He's been doing a little better lately, but overall, not the best from Gardy. My biggest disappointment, I'm going to go with Chad Green just being abominable, being awful. I know someone like Andrew really didn't have high hopes for Chad Green, but I'm someone that has thought highly of Chad Green, and I wasn't expecting him to be like the best relief pitcher in baseball this year, but I wasn't expecting him to have a 12.15 ERA and be demoted to AAA at one point. Man, he's given up 6 home runs this year, ERA above 9. He's just floating fastballs down the middle, mid low 90s. He's just been awful. Even since he's come back, he had that right. He struck out the side against Tampa in his first outing back. We all thought he was going to be going back to the old Chad Green, and since then he's thrown 4 2/3 innings. He's given up 4 runs. It hasn't been great. He's only gotten 13 strikeouts on the season in 13 1/3 innings. He's walking guy. It's Chad Green's been so bad, man. He's been my biggest disappointment. What else can I say about the guy? Look, coming into the year, if we had to do a bullpen trust list coming into the year, I probably would have had Chad Green like top 3. I probably would have had him behind, with Betances being out. I probably would have had him behind, Chappie and Ottavino because we didn't expect this from Canely. Britton was still a little bit of a question mark. I had confidence in Green, and man, it's really bummed me out. Because like he came back, looked good, and now he's back to being bad again. So, guys, any other honorable mentions for storyline of the season? Favorite moment of the season? Any honorable mentions that were left on the cutting room floor that you guys thought of? I'll give mine real quick. I was going to say Tyro Estrada as my favorite storyline of the season because he's been awesome. Didn't expect him to be part of the Yankees this year, but man, he's been really damn good both in the field and at the plate.
Yeah, I second the
say-
Tyro Estrada love there.
More specifically, Tyro Estrada usurping Tyler Wade as a player on the major league roster because I'm very okay with that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Can't argue with that, man. Tyler Wade. I'm glad no one picked him as a disappointment because the hopes weren't high to begin with, but yeah, Tyler Estrada definitely worth shouting out.
We got to talk about Mike Tauchman, man. That guy was an MVP candidate. So good.
Oh my god!
How do you not love Mike Tauchman?
The sock man.
This
I'm never forget. I think the pod moment of the year so far was when I just said I fucking hate Mike Tauchman, and then he goes on the tear of all tears, like the series after.
The day after that, he hit a triple off of Chris Sale.
To be fair, Chris Sale's like 2 wins in the last year, so
He has
really
one
not saying much.
exactly. He has exactly one.
Yeah,
He's 1-6 this year.
and it was against the White Sox. So,
Honorable mention is James Paxton dominating the Red Sox at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
That definitely could have been. It was a candidate for moment of the year because
definitely trying to see more of that second half of the season.
Yeah. Hopefully he's back Wednesday. Guys,
Easter Sunday walk-off against the Royals was a good game too. I believe Chad Green was at the center of that blow-up too. I know Ottavino gave up the big hits when Casey came back and tied the game.
Yeah,
but the Yankees rallied in that one. Romine had the walk-off. That was a fun game.
Honestly, you could have even just put biggest disappointment as Chad Green versus the Angels. Because wasn't that the game that
was the worst game?
That was the worst.
Like
that was
as
where
like
came in and gave a grand slam.
Like,
he came in with a 7-1 lead, loaded the bases, gave up a grand slam, got yanked.
Yeah, it was just in the bag, and then all of a sudden it wasn't. Yeah, the Chad Green special. That was his last.
I believe that was the game that Mike Ford got his first home run.
Yeah,
and it was like, oh, we're coasting. Finally, just an easy win on the West Coast. And of course, Chad Green came in and made us sweat it out till 2 a.m.
Mike Ford, there's another guy that contributed this year, right?
Yep.
Another nice story.
Speaking of the Angels series, too, an honorable mention for moment of the year was the 14-inning game where Gio had the 2 clutch hits to put the Yankees ahead twice.
Another honorable mention for moment of the year, CeCe getting his 3,000th strikeout, right, in Arizona. That was awesome. The big. Hopefully, he gets his 250th win in the next few starts.
The only
right?
memorable moment of that series, really, that was the last series that they lost.
That's true.
Yeah. Yep, and it was only a 2-game set, but yep. Guys, I'll start off with you, Alex. How is this team going to handle all these guys coming off the injury list? Like who's losing their spot? What's going to happen? Because we've seen in all sports when you have guys that have a certain role, it's tough to just take a step back and have that same bring that same energy when you're not playing as much. So how's this team going to handle all these guys coming back? Because they're coming back hopefully sooner rather than later, but.
It's going to take a lot of finagling because a lot of everyone is playing, for the most part, everyone's playing really well right now. So there's no obvious option of who basically to send down. Like, obviously have, Joe Harvey, the last man in the bullpen, obviously can go down. Tyro will probably go down at some point. But I would like to think that overall they kind of embrace everyone coming back, and that helps them become an even better team. Where I feel like I was saying before, this team is different from the one last year because last year they would have, if all these injuries had happened, they still were playing well, and then players came back. I think that may have actually caused them to not play as well after that because everyone who it kind of would have hurt team morale. To just have everyone be holding down the fort and then they just get sent down. But I think with this team that the Yankees have, getting everyone back it's going to be sad to see a lot of the players who've contributed a lot go down. But at the same time, it's going to be exciting for us and for the team to get back, all the regular players that we were excited to see.
Yeah, and especially look at the guys you're getting back. You're going to get back Didi, who's one of the leaders in the clubhouse. Dellin Betances, believe it or not, is one of the longer tenured players on this team.
He's second longest tenured player behind Gardner, right?
And Sabathia.
And CC, yeah.
Did Alex have this is the show where Alex had a stroke. I forgot CC.
Yeah,
like we forgot Derek Jeter.
I just mentioned CC like a minute ago. 3,000.
Okay.
Shame.
Yeah, fun fact about Dellin Betances. He was the reliever who Mariano came in for in his final game. Everyone remembers Matt Daly replaced Rivera, but Rivera came in for Dellin. I always remember. I don't know. So you think Dellin all the way back to 2013. So the guys you're getting back are long tenured Yankees. They're leaders, and I agree, Alex. That's part of what you're giving up in the culture of these guys who've been here and contributed, and they all like each other, and they all have this bond going on, and that's gonna suck a little bit. I think more interestingly is not the roster construction, but how is Aaron Boone going to actually figure out lineups every day? I've been listening to a lot of sports talk radio in New York the past week or so.
Mike Francesa specifically.
Mike Francesa is always on when I drive home from work, and I always listen to it because it amuses me how dumb the callers are. Everyone talking. You either have the Urshela stands, people who we're knowledgeable fans. We watch all the games. We understand what he's doing. People who are just like, so that guy Urshela, he's awesome, right? And then you get the people who are just like, he's not good. The people who are on Twitter today saying like, well, he's not really a good defensive third baseman. He should have made that play, even though there was no third baseman in the league outside of maybe Nolan Arenado who could have handled that hop. Like, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Gio's a guy, he's hitting, 335, 340 at this point? There's no way you can't just not play him. And he's been so clutch. But at the same time, you're not obviously going to, you're not going to pull Voit out unless you DH him and move Morales to first base. I mean, I don't even know if Kendry Morales has a spot on this roster more than another few weeks anyway. But, what are you going to do? You're going to maybe DH Voit and put LeMahieu at first and Glaber at second and Didi at short and Urshela at third. I don't see that as a possibility. It's going to be really interesting to see how they make 5 infielders work on a rotating schedule and everyone still gets to play 5 times a week.
Speaking of Mike Francesa really quick, he has some vital information on Aaron Judge's return.
So he'll come back when he's ready. So until he's ready, he's not ready.
Wow. You guys heard it here first on the pod.
You heard it here
first.
Judge
when Aaron Judge is ready when he's ready.
Come back, he will come back.
Yeah, that honestly
groundbreaking.
Quick shout out to back after this. That's if you want Mike Francesa clips, that's like the best Twitter page of all time.
Yeah. I gotta say though, in Francesa's defense, because of how bad the callers have been the past week or so, he's actually been a lot more level-headed and he hasn't kind of flown off the rails. And at least when he talks baseball, when he talks basketball and golf and horse racing, it's a total crapshoot now. But his baseball takes the last week or so have been pretty good, especially because the Mets fans have no idea what they're talking about when they call in. And the Yankee fans who are ignorant and saying this and this, that's complete nonsense. He's like, all right, you gotta get some kind of perspective. So he's actually been pretty good.
Oh man! Also, not to get going to Mike Francesa wormhole, but apparently he would rather have Mad Bum than Max Scherzer for the Yankees, and he'd give the Giants anything they want for him. So,
that's bad.
That's really bad.
Oh man! All right, what do you think is going to happen with all these guys going off the injured list, and who's losing their spot?
Really, I mean, I'm most interested to see how the outfield situation gets sorted out because that's where the majority of the quote unquote replacement players have been. I think Clint probably have to spend some time down in AAA unless they don't really care to lose Cameron Maybin. It's hard to say because, Maybin can play all three outfield positions. Clint, we really know that he can't. So,
Yep.
But Gardy, I don't think they're gonna just cut him. He's definitely gonna be on the roster. Stanton and Judge is gonna be the everyday right fielder. Stanton can play the outfield, and Judge and Stanton are gonna play every day. Hicks is a center fielder, so it's really about who they care to lose. And I think that Clint will probably have to go down for at least a little while, just because they'll probably enjoy having more defensive versatility. And they've probably been carrying an extra pitcher, right? I think they've carried a short bench for a while now. Like, I think I'd like to see them go and kind of flip that and carry an extra man on the bench for a while, because they have some useful guys. And I think instead of, outright cutting a man loose, that it would be good for them, especially with, all the guys that have been hurt. You maybe carry an extra guy who can play multiple spots, and you don't have to, waste him in and get rid of him.
The tricky thing about that, though, is that once you have Dellin back, you have very limited bullpen flexibility, and they like having right now 2 open spots for guys that can go back and forth between AAA and the bigs.
Mm-hmm.
You had guys like Jake Barrett before he got hurt. You have had Nestor Cortez come up and down. You've had Chance Adams come up and down. You've had Joe Harvey come up and down. When you have Dellin Betances in there, a guy who doesn't have any more options, it's just another veteran guy who has to be on the roster. You have one less spot of flexibility. So one less guy who, like a guy like Cortez is probably going to get sent down tomorrow. No fault of his own. I mean, they'll bring him back up in 4 or 5 days probably, but he pitched 70 pitches today, and he has no use to that bullpen for the next few days. He can't pitch again. So it's good to have a spot like that for a guy who can come up and down, eat some innings, and then they can move him off the roster for a few days and then bring him back when he's available again. And when you have more veterans in the bullpen, you lose that flexibility. So I don't know if they can go short on the bullpen.
Well, I mean, I think when you get a guy like Betances back, right, in theory, that's going to mean that most nights your 8th and your 9th innings are going to be accounted for, and you bump everyone down. Like, maybe it means that you don't have like a Jake Barrett or a Nestor Cortez on the roster, but that would.
But then Cess is your long guy, right? And then Luis Cess is your long guy, and if he pitches 50, 60 pitches one day, then you have to play a man short for 4 days because they're not going to send him down. They can't. He doesn't have options either.
I feel like
So you're kind of hamstrung,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think in my opinion, the thing that was really hamstringing the bullpen to this point in the season was the Yankees thinking that Chad Green was going to be much better than he has been. Like,
right. Well, at least with him, they can send him down if they need to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's caused the most problems, right? Because you could be like, yeah, well, Dellin's back. Chad Green can pitch the 5th inning now if we need him to, but he can't because he's been inconsistent and outright bad at times. Like, if he's might be overall better than like Jake Barrett or Joseph Harvey or whatever, but I mean, that's my biggest problem, I guess, in terms of going short. That would be the biggest cause of an issue for me, is that Chad Green's unreliable.
Right, well, it makes sense. Like when you have a good starting performance and you just need to, fill 2-3 innings in the back end, you're not going to have. I mean, look at a game like today. You're going to have blow-up starts. You're going to have games where you're up by 7-8 runs and you want to pull your starter after 5 innings. You're not going to use Ottavino in those spots either. Not every, the game will dictate how you use your bullpen, and not every game is going to play out the same.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Guys, let's wrap this show up. Wrap this State of the Yankees pod up with our bold prediction up until the All-Star break. I'll start it off. I'm going to go ahead and say that Masahiro Tanaka makes the All-Star team. He really does. I mean, I know obviously wins aren't really an indication of how well a pitcher's pitched, but he's only had 3 wins on the season, 2.94 ERA. Whip looks great. He's looked great. He's really only had 2 bad starts. And they were both in April, the one against the White Sox and the one against the Angels. But in his last 5 starts, he's allowed 3 runs or less in all 5 starts. He's thrown great against the Baltimore last start. I love watching Masa pitch. He's probably my favorite pitcher to watch on the staff, and I think he's going to start getting really hot. I see it, and I think he's going to wind up on the All-Star team. Am I crazy for thinking that? Is he just does he just give up too many home runs for him to get voted in, or am I just?
I think there's definitely a chance that he could. He definitely has to limit the home runs, but as long as if they're just solo shots, if he does limit them, I think there's definitely a chance that he could make it.
And to be fair, he kind of has cut down the home runs a bit this year. He's only allowed 8, and he hasn't allowed a home run in 4 starts, and he has allowed a home run in 7 starts. So not bad, right? He's definitely not Jay Happ back there. Alex, bold prediction rest of the year.
All right, I'm going to predict that by the time the All-Star break rolls around, Gary Sanchez is going to lead the American League in home runs. As of right now, he's tied for third he has 15. George Springer is 17. Eddie Rosario is 16. And Bregman, Joey Gallo, and Sanchez all have 15. As of right now, Springer is injured. And Rosario, Bregman, and Gallon are all
Gallon.
Joey Gallon.
They're
all good, but I think Sanchez, he definitely has a shot of going on another classic Sanchez tear and just taking over the lead in home runs.
I would love to see it. What's your bold prediction?
I'm going to predict that by the time the All-Star break rolls around, the Yankees will have a 5-game lead in the American League East.
Why not 10? Well, why are you going small? Why not like a 12-game lead, dude?
Yeah, it's hot take season. Come on.
Hot takes. I can't even come up with a good one on the top of my head. They're currently 2 games up on the Rays. They are 6.5 games up on the Red Sox. The Red Sox have been coming on a little bit, and the Yankees are going to play the Red Sox at least a few times before the All-Star break. But the Yankees looks like they'll be getting Didi back within a few weeks. Paxton hopefully this week. Stanton, who knows? But Troy Tulowitzki maybe soon after that. They'll have some healthy bodies coming back, and I think they could maybe continue this run that they're on. And the Rays have played a pretty average stretch of baseball the last 20 or so games. They're kind of up and down around 500. I think the opportunity is definitely there for the Yankees to stretch this lead and have it be a very different circumstance than what we were looking at last year.
All right, mine. I'm gonna say that Aaron Hicks is gonna get white hot and end with let's say 10 home runs by the All-Star break, and he only has, I believe, 1 right now, and it would take a pretty significantly hot June. But I've seen some things in the past few days that so that he's kind of finding his game back. It was a little rough watching him his first games back. He did have a big game-tying 2-run single in Sunday afternoon's game. Yankees obviously ended up losing in extras anyway, but it was still a big hit nonetheless. I think Hicks, how smooth his swing looks when he connects. I mean, that home run he hit off, who was it? Charlie Morton last Sunday was just, it was perfect, man.
Hicks bombs are so nice.
Yeah. I think, him hitting at the top of the lineup, whether it be first or second, is going to add a lot of depth to the lineup. Of course, the left-handed bat is significant in its own right. Well, he's a switch hitter, but I think he can get really, really hot, and that adds a whole other, layer to the offense with Gary, like Alex. If both my predictions and Alex's predictions come true, that's a scary lineup. You have Hicks and Gary mashing. I mean, even if just one of those two guys get white hot, I mean that's good news for us.
Yeah, Hicks being back, it's great. He made a beautiful play in center field today. Probably didn't need to jump, but just a nice little reminder of how great of a defensive outfielder he is. And yeah, he also drops bombs too. So great to have Hicks.
Everything.
Yep, pimps walks, pimps singles, pimps doubles. He pimps it all. Well, guys, anything else? Anything else we want to talk about? All the stuff that's happened so far this season?
J-Hap sucks.
J-Hap fucking sucks. We could have put that as the biggest disappointment too, but
Too
I'm
many.
surprised no one said that.
I mean, I didn't because coming into the year, I even said I wasn't expecting much from him, so I really can't say he's been a disappointment for me. I kind of expected him to do this. No, I didn't
feel like
expect
we
him
were
to
all
give up
pretty
14
pissed
home
off.
runs, but
What was our over under for him early in there? Did we say like ERA? It was like
I think I
4.
predicted him to have like a 4.5 ERA.
I think I was there with you too.
predicted him to have a
Mhm.
low ERA.
Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of season left, right? But he's at I think 5.15 right now. So yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle for him.
Yankee
Happer.
fans, I feel like we're all pretty mad about Hap because of the contract that he signed. Like signing a 37 or 38-year-old pitcher to that $17 million. Like,
It's only 2 years, man, and he didn't lose a regular season game.
Well,
last
and
year.
that was also
36 or
just like
37.
leftover frustration from the Yankees not signing Corbin too.
Yeah,
That's true.
honestly, dude, Brian Cashman, what's this guy doing? He doesn't know what he's doing, right?
Fire
I
Cashman.
mean, look, they got Luke Voigt for chasing Shreve, and now he has a 6 ERA in AAA. So Cashman does not know what he's doing, clearly.
Jason Shreve, what a blast!
Fun fact: the Yankees got Luke Voigt for Manny Banuelos. Think about it. They traded right. They traded Banuelos in what was it, 2015? I think for David Carpenter, Rip to him, and Shreve obviously became Voigt. So it's funny how that stuff works out.
Andrew high as hell.
Oh man, well,
This has been late night thoughts with Andrew.
On that, before Andrew goes on another rant about some former Yankee that was on the team in like 2002, we're gonna wrap it up for the Bronx Bomber Battle Pod State of the Yankees edition. This was Luigi, Alex, Andrew, G. We had the whole crew here tonight. This is the Bronx Bomber Battle Podcast. We'll see you guys next time. Go Yanks.